A new skirmish today in the race for the White House with the Romney and Obama campaigns battling over backbone and who's stronger. While surrogates were leading the fight for Mitt Romney, Vice President Joe Biden was leading the charge for the Democrats, and he did not mince any words. Our national political correspondent Jim Acosta is joining us now. Jim, what did Vice President Biden say?
Well, Vice President Biden absolutely unloaded on Mitt Romney, raising the question of whether the presumptive GOP nominee would have taken out Osama bin Laden. Then there's the other Biden comment that has all of Washington talking about the president's big stick. Vice President Joe Biden brought a speech to New York that could be described as the big stick in the Big Apple, quoting Teddy Roosevelt.
Speak softly and carry a big stick. I promise you, the president has a big stick. I promise you.
And he used that stick to beat up Mitt Romney with a bumper sticker catchphrase that the Obama campaign hopes to drive home all the way to November.
Osama bin Laden is dead, and General Motors is alive.
Biden's speech came just days before the one-year anniversary of the president's decision to authorize the killing of Osama bin Laden. In a razor-sharp attack, Biden suggested Romney might have let bin Laden live.
We can't say for certain what Governor Romney would have done.
The vice president referred to a comment Romney made in 2007 when he told the Associated Press it's not worth moving heaven and earth, spending billions of dollars just trying to catch one person. Days later, Romney backed away from his remarks in a GOP debate.
Do we move heaven and earth to do it? We'll move everything to get him.
With Romney off fundraising, his campaign fired back, accusing the White House of showing weakness to North Korea just before the communist nation tested a long-range missile. In a column in Foreign Policy magazine, Romney advisor Richard Williamson writes, the U.S. is approaching a Jimmy Carter moment, adding this is not the kind of leadership our country needs. On a campaign conference call, other Romney advisors said the president failed to capitalize on uprisings in Syria and Iran.
It is President Obama's track record that has sent a message to our friends and allies who are looking to American leadership, who are really left exposed and isolated.
But in two separate instances, other advisors on the call mistakenly made Cold War references.
We are seeing the Soviets pushing into the Arctic with no response from us.
The United States abandoned its missile defense sites in Poland and Czechoslovakia.
That fit right into Biden's not-so-self-deprecating line, reminding the crowd Romney has also referred to the Russians as Soviets.
Everybody sometimes slips. I never do, but everybody sometimes slips. Governor Romney is mired in a Cold War mindset.
The RNC answered the vice president's speech with a web video recalling Biden once said Mr. Obama was not ready to be president. Romney will have a chance to respond directly to Biden's comments when he gets back out in front of voters tomorrow in Ohio. Wolf.
Jim Acosta, good report. Thanks very much. Let's bring in our strategy session right now. Joining us, the former White House Deputy Communications Director, the Democratic strategist Jen Psaki, and CNN contributor, Republican strategist Alex Castellanos. He's the co-founder of Purple Strategies, a bipartisan communications firm. Guys, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Will.
That recent CBS News New York Times poll, how's President Obama handling foreign policy? 46% approve, 36% disapprove, 18% unsure. It's less than 50%. That's not a ringing endorsement of the president who wound up managing to kill bin Laden.
Well, when the president came into office, we were in 2 wars. Our reputation around the world was suffering. Since then, we've ended the war in Iraq. We've caught bin Laden. Gaddafi is no longer walking around. And we've really restored our relationships. He's done quite a bit to improve our place around the world. And I think that's what people will be looking at. But we're still facing some challenges, and that's why he needs to remain in office for another 4 years.
Is this going to be a big issue at all, you think, assuming that there's no war or any major crisis, terrorism crisis or nuclear crisis? Is foreign policy, national security between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney going to be a major issue this time around?
Well, that's the big assumption, isn't it, Wolf, is that we don't know. What we do know is that weakness invites the wolves, is that when a weak United States is perceived as weak, things become unstable around the world, and we've seen the world become increasingly unstable during the presidency of Barack Obama. You know, this is the president that sat down with Putin Jr., Medvedev, and said, hey, here are my cards. I'm in a really weak situation right now. Take it easy on me. I'll give you what you want after the election. That's terrible poker. No one does that, and you certainly don't do that with a global competitor and adversary.
You got to tell your friends at the Romney campaign. You worked for them 4 years ago. You're not working for them this time. There is no more Soviet Union. There's no more Czechoslovakia. They got to get the language correct if they want to be responsible and authoritative on these issues.
They do need to get the language correct, and I think comedians all over the country are relieved, even though Newt Gingrich has dropped out, that Joe Biden is back. I think he can maybe watch his language a little bit too. But the point about the Soviet Union is that there's a historic Russian compulsion to expand and to reassemble the Soviet Empire and to control those resources and basically to insulate themselves, protect their borders. This is a petro-fueled state
but there
that
is
can
no
grow
Soviet
again.
Union now.
But I think that's what they were referring to.
But you know what? The Vice President, Joe Biden, he got some Snickers. We heard earlier in Jim Acosta's report when he spoke about a big stick when he was at NYU today. He also had this reference, and it similarly caused a bunch of snickering among the students there. Listen to this.
This guy's got a backbone like a ramrod. No, for real. For real. I promise you, the president has a big stick. I promise you.
You worked in the White House for a while. You know, these words, they could have double entendres, shall we say.
Well, Wolf, look, I think we can all rely on the vice president to bring empathy and bring experience and also bring some humor from time to time. So I hope that's what people take it as. I will say, though, that, this race is between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. What we've seen from Mitt Romney's foreign policy approach is that he wants to go back and dust off the old go-it-alone approach. And I think that's something that scares people across this country as well. And also, he was against going into Libya and going after Gaddafi before he was for it. So there's a lot we don't know, and I think there'll be a conversation about national security in the months ahead.
I won't comment on Biden's words because this could be where I get banned from CNN for life. But the only person that brags about how tough they are usually the people who aren't. This is a president who couldn't find his big stick when people were trying to find freedom in Syria and in Iran in the streets during the Spring Revolution there. So this is a president who talks tough but then sits down with Medvedev and says, shows him all his cards. It's not strong leadership, and without American strength,
but look, in
there's
fairness,
more instability in the world.
Alex,
we're seeing a world
you
on
got to
fire.
give him credit for making that decision, not an easy decision, to send those Navy SEALs into Abbottabad, Pakistan.
Absolutely give him credit. But also, Wolf, one of these days, I'd like you to run 2 bites. One is what Barack Obama said after he caught and we killed Bin Laden. And what George Bush says after we caught Saddam Hussein. They're so different. One of them is I did this, and the other one is we, and those brave men in the SEALs. It's just a very different approach, and I think a sense of arrogance.
You want to respond to that?
Well, I will have to say, as Wolf mentioned, that going into Pakistan and going after Osama bin Laden was a very difficult decision for the president to make that showed leadership, that showed strength, that showed pragmatism. And he went and he thanked everybody who's been a part of it. He thanked the SEALs. He applauded every person who was a part of that team, even people who were in the administration long before him. So I just have to completely disagree with your point.
Watch his statement sometime. It tells you a lot about Barack Obama.
Wait, we're going to have a lot more on this part of the story, by the way. In our next hour, Time Magazine, in their new cover story, has a Peter Bergen article on what happened in this past year. It's almost a year since bin Laden was killed. Graham Allison has a good article. We're going to preview that in our next hour, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
She's just back from Afghanistan, but one member of Congress, Michelle Bachmann, she's got some news to share with us on what's going on about a very specific controversy. My interview with Michelle Bachmann's coming up in our next hour. Also, surprising new details emerging at the trial of John Edwards as the prosecution's star witness gets grilled. Plus, an exclusive interview with the man behind Girls Gone Wild. He says he bought a Senate internship to, quote, have the hottest chick in the country come to Washington. What happened? We'll tell you what that congressman is doing now, that senator, I should say, and why he's asking the FBI to investigate.
It's been a long journey to get here.